If you are a Christian, then you know that Israel is the center of Bible prophecy. So as Christians, when news comes out of Israel, we tend to stop and listen and take note of what's happening. And the events that have been happening and the news that has been coming out of Israel over the past week is pretty noteworthy. The Jerusalem Post posted an article on June the 8th, and the title of this article is Israel Makes Dramatic Upgrades to Military Plans to Attack Iran. It says IAF can now fly its F-35 stealth fighter jets from Israel to the Islamic Republic without requiring mid-air refueling. In the face of Iran's continued development of a nuclear capability, the Israeli Air Force has developed a new capability to be able to fly its F-35 stealth fighter jets from Israel to the Islamic Republic without requiring mid-air refueling. The development is a boost to the IAF capabilities and comes as the Israeli military has upped its preparations for a future strike against Iran's nuclear capabilities. In addition, the IAF recently integrated a new 1-ton bomb into the arsenal of weapons used by the F-35s, also known in the IAF as the Adir, which is spelled ADIR, and can be carried inside the plane's internal weapons compartment without jeopardizing its stealth radar signature. The bomb, made by Rafael Advanced Weapon Systems, is said to be autonomous and protected against jamming and electronic warfare systems. The bomb was recently used in a series of IAF tests, and the results of which were presented to Defense Minister Benny Gantz. The IAF has held 4 large-scale drills simulating attacks against Iran over the last month. The first drill included confronting Iranian radar and detection systems, like those which protect its nuclear installations. The second included simulating long-range combat flights, in this case to destinations in Europe. The other drills included defensive measures against cyber weapons and electronic warfare systems, means that could be used by Iran to undermine the Israeli military operation. So that's a pretty bad to the bone system that they've got working there, and I have a feeling something's fixing to pop off. Bennett threatens Iran. News of the progress in military preparedness came just a day after Prime Minister Naftali Bennett told the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee that Israel's Iran strategy has changed in the last year, and it is, quote, acting against the head, not just its arms, as we had in recent years, end of quote. So that's a pretty bold statement. You want to cut off something completely, you cut off its head. During the recent military maneuvers, the IAF also drilled cooperation between fifth-generation fighter jets like the F-35 and fourth-generation jets like Israel's older model F-15s and F-16s. The planes practiced sharing intelligence missions and more. Iran's surface-to-air missile systems and radars are crowded, and they are not the only challenge. A defense official said, "We need to be able to attack targets that are significant, and the attack needs to be able to cause extensive damage. There are multiple targets in Iran at different ranges." So this isn't the first. I mean, Israel has struck people before. They sent bombs down to different targets, but this is really kind of the first time that they've made it public and in the media, which I don't know if it's, a different strategy that they're using or because they are under a new prime minister, but This is definitely something to stand up and take note of. So let's back up a few days to June the 3rd. There was an article in the Voice of America, and it's titled, "Iran Warns of Immediate Response to Political Action by Nuclear Watchdog." Iran said Friday it will respond immediately to any political action at a looming meeting of the UN nuclear watchdog after the U.S. vowed to join Europeans in urging Tehran's cooperation. Iran's warning comes as talks to revive a hobbled 2015 nuclear deal between the Islamic Republic and the world powers have been stalled since March, and ahead of a pivotal meeting next week of the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is known as the IAEA Board of Governors. The U.S. said Thursday it will join Britain, France, and Germany in seeking an IAEA resolution at that meeting, after the nuclear watchdog said Iran had not clarified questions about the presence of nuclear material found at 3 undeclared sites. Any political action by the United States and the 3 European countries in the IAEA would provoke, without any doubt, a proportional, effective, and immediate response. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian, I don't know how to pronounce that name, said. He was quoted in a statement by his ministry and made the comments in a telephone call with the European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell, the coordinator of talks to restore the 2015 nuclear deal. Iran and the IAEA had previously said that resolving the issue of the 3 sites is necessary for efforts to revive the deal. The 2015 agreement gave Iran relief from crippling economic sanctions in exchange for curbs in its nuclear activities, measures aimed at preventing it from developing an atomic bomb. Iran has always denied seeking such a weapon, and I have never believed that. Iran wants a nuke, and Iran having a nuke, that's just tragedy waiting to happen. Iran also warns Israel. The U.S. unilaterally withdrew from the deal in 2018 under then President Donald Trump and reimposed biting sanctions on Iran, prompting Tehran to roll back its nuclear commitments and leaving the agreement hanging by a thread. Amir Abdollahian said the move by Washington and the 3 European states in favor of a resolution is an act contrary to diplomatic practice, hasty and unconstructive. It will make the process of negotiation more difficult and complicated, he added in the statement. Efforts to restore the 2015 deal were already marred by the U.S. designation of Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps as a terrorist organization. Tehran insists that the designation must be removed, but the U.S. says the blacklisting will remain. They are a terrorist state. That's just fact. Iran had warned Wednesday against unconstructive action at the IAEA and said it would respond firmly and appropriately. On Thursday, U.S. State Department spokesperson Ned Price confirmed that Washington planned to join its 3 allies in seeking a resolution focused on the need for Iran to fully cooperate with the IAEA. He said that the latest IAEA report raised very serious concerns that Iran has failed to credibly respond to the Vienna-based body's questions. Amir Abdollahian spoke to the Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov on Friday, his ministry said. He told his Russian counterpart, parties that obstruct the diplomatic path will be held responsible for the consequences of adopting any anti-Iranian resolution at the IAEA meeting. Russia, along with China, are also parties to Iran's 2015 agreement. On Friday, Israeli Prime Minister Naftali Bennett warned the head of the IAEA that Israel was prepared to use its right to self-defense to stop Iran's nuclear program. He spoke after nuclear watchdog chief Rafael Grossi met Bennett on Friday morning during a whirlwind visit that Emir Abdullahian said contravened the IAEA principle of neutrality. Iran's nuclear negotiation, Ali Bagheri, meanwhile, issued its own warning to Israel. The Zionists may only be able to dream of striking Iran, and if that happens, it will be a dream from which they will never wake up, he said on Twitter. Israel and Iran are arch foes, and the Jewish state is staunchly opposed to the 2015 nuclear agreement, perceiving it as a threat to its security. And they're right. It most absolutely is. It's a threat to their security, and it's a threat to the world. Tehran blames Israel for killing several of its nuclear scientists. Most recently, Moshen Farak, it's spelled Fakhdhradeh, in late 2020. So this has actually been going on all month. Next, we're going to take a look at what Iran has actually done. Okay, so this is where things really start getting sketchy in this. Yesterday, on June the 9th, the Times of Israel published an article titled "Fatal Blow to Talks." UN nuke watchdog says Iran is removing 27 surveillance cameras. The head of the UN's nuclear watchdog agency said Thursday that Iran is removing 27 surveillance cameras from nuclear sites in the country, raising the risk of its inspectors being unable to track Tehran's advances as it enriches uranium closer than ever to weapon-grade levels. Rafael Mariano Grossi, the Director General of the International Atomic Energy Agency, made the comments at a hastily called news conference in Vienna, standing next to an example of the cameras installed across Iran. Grossi said the move poses a serious challenge to its efforts, warning that in 3 to 4 weeks it would be unable to maintain a continuity of knowledge about Iran's program. This would be a fatal blow to negotiations over Iran's tattered nuclear deal with world powers. When we lose this, then it's anybody's guess, he added. Yeah, if we can't monitor them or inspect them, then who knows what they're doing or what they're making over there. Iran did not immediately acknowledge it was removing the cameras, though it threatened Wednesday to take more steps amid a years-long crisis that threatens to widen into further attacks across the Mideast. Grossi said that would leave 40-something cameras still in Iran. The sites that would see cameras removed include its underground Nanets nuclear enrichment facility, as well as its uranium conversion facility in Isfahan, Grossi said. Now, I know I'm butchering these names all the heck, but I apologize, just bear with me. We are in a very tense situation with the negotiations over the nuclear deal at a low ebb, Grossi added. Now we are adding to this picture. As you can see, it's not a very nice one. On Wednesday, Iran said it shut off 2 devices the IAEA uses to monitor enrichment at Nanets. Grossi acknowledged that, saying that among the devices being removed was the online enrichment monitor and flow meter. Those watch the Those watch the enrichment of uranium gas through the piping and enrichment facilities. Iran's decision comes as the IAEA's board censured Tehran over what the agency calls the Islamic Republic's failure to provide credible information over man-made nuclear material found at 3 undeclared sites in the country. Did we expect them to be honest about any of this? Did we expect back in 2015 when this deal was struck that any of this would go well? The IAEA earlier Thursday said Grossi told members that Iran informed the agency that it planned to install 2 new cascades of the IR-6 at Nanets. A cascade is a series of centrifuges hooked together to rapidly spin uranium gas to enrich it. An IR-6 centrifuge spins uranium 10 times as fast as the first-generation centrifuges that Iran was once limited to under its nuclear deal with the world powers. As of February, Iran already had been spinning a cascade of IR-6s at its underground facility at Fordo, according to the IAEA. Iran earlier said it planned to install 1 cascade of IR-6s at Natanz. The IAEA said it verified the ongoing installation of that cascade Monday, while the newly promised 2 new cascades had yet to begin. Iran and the world powers agreed in 2015 to the nuclear deal, which saw Tehran drastically limit its enrichment of uranium in exchange for lifting economic sanctions. In 2018, then President Donald Trump unilaterally withdrew the U.S. from the accord, raising tensions across the wider Middle East and sparking a series of attacks and incidents. Talks in Vienna over Iran's tattered nuclear deal have been stalled since April. Since the deal's collapse, Iran runs advanced centrifuges and has a rapidly growing stockpile of enriched uranium. Non-proliferation experts warn Iran has enriched uranium enough up to 60% purity, a short technical step from weapons-grade levels of 90% to make 1 nuclear weapon should it decide to do so. I bet they're already in the process of making it. Iran insists it's programmed for its peaceful purposes, though UN experts and Western intelligence agencies say Iran had an organized military nuclear program through 2003. Building a nuclear bomb would still take Iran more time if it pursued a weapon, analysts say, though they warn Tehran's advances make the program more dangerous. Israel has threatened in the past that it would carry out a preemptive strike to stop Iran, and already is suspected in a series of recent killings targeting Iranian officials. Iran has already been holding footage from IAEA surveillance cameras since February of 2021 as a pressure tactic to restore a nuclear accord. The Atomic Energy Organization of Iran, which runs its civilian nuclear program, published video it said showed its workers turning off both regular and backup battery power for 2 IAEA cameras on Wednesday. So they're not doing this secretively. I mean, they're turning these cameras off and videotaping it and say, here, look. The censure resolution at the IAEA meeting in Vienna, sponsored by Germany, France, the UK, and US, passed with the support of 30 to 35 governors. Russia and China voted against. Russian Ambassador Mikhail Ulyanov wrote on Twitter, India, Libya, and Pakistan abstained. After the vote, a joint statement from France, Germany, and the UK And the U.S. said the censure sends an ambiguous message to Iran that it must meet its safeguards and obligations and provide technically credible clarifications on outstanding safeguards issues. Iran's foreign ministry, meanwhile, criticized the censure as a political, incorrect, and unconstructive action. An Iranian official earlier warned IAEA officials that Tehran was now considering taking other measures as well. We hope that they come to their senses and respond to Iran's cooperation with cooperation. It's not acceptable that they show inappropriate behavior while Iran continues to cooperate. They're not cooperating, though. They're turning off cameras and they're going against the whole deal. Israel's Prime Minister Naftali Bennett praised the vote as a significant decision that exposes Iran's true face. The IAEA vote is a clear warning light to Iran. If Iran continues its activity, the leading countries must bring the matter back to the UN Security Council, said Bennett, who made an unannounced trip Thursday to the United Arab Emirates. Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian called the U.S. the culprit in the Iranian nuclear crisis and urged America to respond positively to the legitimate concerns of the Iranian side. Well, of course they do. China is an ally of Iran. Wednesday night, a drone exploded over the northern Iraqi city of Erbil in its Kurdish region, slightly wounding 3 people and damaging cars in a nearby restaurant, officials said. The Kurdistan region's Directorate General of Counterterrorism alleged Thursday that the Iran-backed Kataib Hezbollah brigades launched the drone. So things are starting to really heat up over there, and it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. So let's go to church for a little bit here and look at Revelations 9:13 through 20. It says, "The sixth angel sounded his trumpet, and I heard a voice coming from the 4 horns of the golden altar that is before God. It said to the sixth angel who had the trumpet, 'Release the 4 angels who are bound at the great river Euphrates.' And the 4 angels who had been kept ready for this very hour and day and month and year were released to kill 1/3 of mankind. The number of the mounted troops was twice 10,000 times 10,000. I heard their number. The horses and riders I saw in my vision looked like this. Their breastplates were fiery red, dark blue, and yellow as sulfur. The heads of the horses resembled the heads of lions, and out of their mouths came fire, smoke, and sulfur. 1/3 of mankind was killed by these 3 plagues of fire, smoke, and sulfur that came out of their mouths. The power of these horses was in their mouths and in their tails, for their tails were like snakes, having heads which they inflict injury." Now, the Bible says a war is going to come to that area where the Euphrates River is. And right now we have threats from China to Taiwan, with Russia and the Ukraine, and now Israel is threatening Iran, and Iran is pretty much threatening everybody. So if Israel does strike Iran, with Iran being allies with China and Russia, it will be interesting to see if they get involved. It'll be interesting to see if Israel strikes Iran, period. I know they're making threats, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what they're going to do. So with the UN cameras being turned off by Iran, you know that they're up to no good. So all we can do now is keep an eye on this and watch and pray. That's all I have for today. Thank you and have a good day.